out to sow. As he sowed, some seeds fell on the path. Other seeds fell on rocky ground. Other seeds fell among thorns. Other seeds fell on good ground. Words from the Gospel according to Matthew, chapter 13, and verses 3 through 8. And now, for the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts, your ways acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. As we listen to the gospel passage for this morning, I am sure we could identify the situation that Jesus was hinting at when he told the parable of the sower. There are always those who are willing to share the message of the gospel with others. And each of us who hear this message are expected to respond. And so in our dispensation, anyone who claims that they have never heard the message of the gospel can only be strangers to the truth. Even though, of course, we are persons who lead from one denomination to another, or they hear a different preacher, and they will proclaim for everybody to hear, it's the first time they have been hearing that. But those same people will be proud to tell you that they have been going to church from since they were babies. So something must be wrong. The fact is that there are many persons and many opportunities for all who are interested to hear the message of the gospel. There is radio, there is television, there is the internet, and of course, the physical attendance at church. Hence, anyone who claims that they have never heard it is not interested in hearing it. And if they are, then they chose to ignore it. The reality is that, just like in Jesus' day, there are those who are not at all interested. There are those who are somewhat interested, but prefer what the world has to offer. There are those who are interested, but not yet willing to commit themselves to a life of serving Christ. And there are those who are not only interested, but they are also willing and ready to commit to serving God, even though they recognize that doing so will not be easy. Jesus identified 4 responses to the message. And by doing so, there is the recognition that everybody would not respond in the same way. And in the gospel, we hear the words, the path son. So the first response comes from those who can be described as the path, the road that people walk. That passageway between the different sections in an agricultural setting. This is where people walk. And because they're constantly walking on it, it becomes hard. And coupled to the fact that the constant walking prevents anything from growing, it becomes well nigh impossible for seeds to grow. The other challenge here is that the birds, who are always looking for food, devours any seed that falls in this place. These are they who hear the word but don't understand it. And many such people do not try to understand it. And this is why we try to encourage our people to not only read the Bible, but come out to Bible study. Sit in groups and discuss. Especially if it is that we're not accustomed to doing it. We need to somehow come to understand, because if we don't, then the little that we hear which doesn't make sense to us, somebody with evil intentions will come and snatch that away from our hearts. Those that fell in rocky ground are those who, upon hearing the word, immediately receive it and they are happy. But the unfortunate thing is that they don't develop roots. They remain surface. The joy of hearing and the joy of wanting to do is not matched by creating roots and coming to understand what it is we're getting involved in. And so we only last but for a while. These people, when troubles come, when there's persecution, hardships of any kind, when difficulties come as a result of the word, they immediately fall away. This group is lacking in commitment or faith. So not only they don't quite understand what they're getting into, not only are they not prepared to commit to something, but their faith is weak. And it seems to suggest that for them, having become a follower of Jesus Christ, life will suddenly become very easy. Those that fell among thorns, they have faith. They have a little ground in which to create some roots. But with all that, they eventually get choked. Because again, the commitment is lacking. What happens to them is that they're still caught up with the wealth and the other material things of the world around them. And here again, there's a lack of committing themselves to giving those things up. Often you will talk to certain people and they will tell you they're willing to come to serve, but I can't give up this and I can't give up that. And one of the big things that a lot of people put forward is money. The church can't pay me enough to do this work. The truth is, my brothers and sisters, that when you come to work for God, you know you're making a sacrifice. You know, we often talk about persons go off to college and university and come back with degrees, first degree, second degree, maybe even a PhD. And when compared to persons out in the secular world, we don't make that kind of cash. But depending on where you sit, there are other things that you benefit from that could be equal to some money. But for most of us, we see what we get in our hands before we see anything else. And then some feel restricted. And of course we need to restrict ourselves, because if we're going to be living off what persons contribute, and you're going to be careful and thought about how you use it, you can't be lavish with it. Or should I say, you should not be lavish with it. And so there's all that worldly thing attached why some people don't come. And so those who fell among the thorns, they really want to do it, but can't bring themselves around because the pressures of the material things gets to them. And so they fall away too. And here again is that lack of commitment. Lack of a faith that says that if I come to serve God, yes, I know I am making a sacrifice, but I'm willing to make that sacrifice. And then those that fell on the good soil, these, upon hearing the word, accept the word with joy. But they go further. They seek to create roots. They seek to commit themselves to serving Jesus. They are willing to face the troubles and the trials and the persecutions and the hardships and the difficulties that will come as a result of following Jesus. Their faith is strong and they're rooted. And these are not looking for or expecting life to be easy as being a follower of Jesus Christ. The simple truth is that to be a disciple of Jesus is demanding. And if we're going to come into it, therefore, we must be willing to go through with it, even if it means that we have to endure suffering and hardship. Following Jesus, therefore, requires undivided loyalty and single-mindedness. So we can't be serving God and at the same time trying to serve the world, as if the world is competing. And yes, it is. The world competes for our attention. So we have to decide that we are either undividedly loyal to Jesus, or we are single-minded with him. In the book of Revelation, the writer describes a certain group of people as being lukewarm. You know, they're neither hot nor cold. And the writer says, God will spit you out of his mouth. We have to be committed, therefore, to something. And we can't have split loyalty. The funny thing is that many of us are prepared to show loyalty to certain human beings who are leaders at whatever level. And irrespective of what they do or say, we are still loyal. Even to the point sometimes of defending them when we know that they're wrong. But when it comes to serving God and following Jesus, we Christians are not that loyal. We are afraid of what might happen if we show loyalty. But we are called to be loyal. You see, the spin-off of all of this, apart from the challenges you will face, is that it calls all of us to reflect. Reflect on what we're hearing. Reflect on what we are seeing. And thus come to an understanding of what is being presented to us. One of the challenges we face in life is that very often there's some people who want, if they tell us the sky is pink and you look up and see it's blue, you must say, yes, it's pink. You must not look up and say, no sir, no ma'am, the sky is blue. For some, you must not reflect. You must not think for yourself. And a lot of us are maligned and pushed aside by others simply because we express an opposing view. Now sometimes that's necessary. And I don't mean oppose for opposing sake, because some people do that very well too. But we must be able, in the short term and in the long term, to reflect on what we are being told, reflect on what we are hearing, reflect on what we are seeing, so we could come to a better understanding of what it is we're being asked to get involved in. To follow Jesus asks nonetheless. Because you see, if we're going to be going out as sowers, we must know what seeds we're planting. We must be able to explain what we're talking about and with the experience we have. We must understand it because we are part of it. Only when we would have done this, you will meet the demands of the faith and become truly dedicated, and then experience a fruitful harvest and be able to bring others to Jesus Christ. I want to say to all of us this morning that we are all sowers. We are messengers. We are to help to get the message of the good news to others. It is not intended to be the task or mission of a chosen few. All of us must therefore go out and sow the seed of the gospel. We must understand, though, that we need to understand it for ourselves. And we must be living it as well. We must also understand that those to whom the message is given will have to decide, each for himself or herself, how they respond to the message. It is hoped that they will respond in a certain way, but that does not always happen. As sowers or messengers, our task therefore is to deliver the message to those who would hear it and leave them to respond as they see fit. How fruitful we become if we grow or bear fruit at all depends on how we receive the word. It depends, therefore, where we are in our relationship with God and with Jesus Christ. It depends on where we are spiritually. There are some words I want to leave with you as we seek to understand going out to sow and people responding. One of the important factors is listening. When we hear the message, we must be willing to listen, which is a step above hearing. Often we hear people, but we don't listen to them. So we must not only be hearing, we must be willing to listen to the message of the gospel of salvation. Then we must seek to understand, because only when we understand what it is, then we can begin to move in the direction of being fruitful. We need therefore to reflect on the message of Jesus. Those who brush off the message, they become seduced by the evil and all the things of this world around them. If we lack the understanding, that is, it makes us shallow, we are not sound, we are not rooted, and we are not reflecting enough to withstand persecution. And those who bear fruit will bear because they have put all of this in place. I want to challenge us today to become that good soil. The world needs persons who are good soil. It means that we have to open ourselves to the Word. Be willing to live with the Word and all that it brings. And then when we ourselves would have accepted the Word and would have committed ourselves to serving God, then we now can go out and be messengers. Only when we would have gotten to that point, my brothers and sisters, we will be able to plant seeds in the lives of others. What ground are we? The path, thorns,